They were taken to Elias's study and locked inside together. The room was windowless, save for one high transom, impassable to reach. The door, heavy oak, was locked from the outside. As soon as they were alone, Seraphina moved to Caleb. "Are you hurt?" "No, miss, but we're in serious trouble." "Yes, but not as much as you think." She pulled something from inside her dress, the papers they had been copying. "I managed to keep these. He didn't search me. Too confident." "That will not help if we are dead." "We are not going to die, not tonight." Seraphina's eyes were calculating. "My father will want to resolve this without killing me if possible. I am still his daughter, his blood. That gives us leverage." Over the next hour they heard arrivals, voices in the hall, men gathering. The sons of Kronos were assembling. Finally, the door opened. Marcus Fanning stood there, face grim. "They are ready for you. Come peacefully, and you will not be harmed." They were led down to the north wing's cellar again. This time, the main chamber had been transformed. All 13 Sons of Kronos members were present, dressed in ritual robes. Candles burned in every holder. The altar was draped with crimson cloth. 13 chairs arranged in a perfect circle, all occupied except Elias's at the altar's head. Caleb and Seraphina were positioned in the circle's center, forced to stand facing Elias. The other members watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. Elias removed his hood. "Brothers of Kronos, thank you for coming on short notice. We face a crisis. My daughter and her associate discovered our inner chamber. They saw the ledger. They were copying entries when I interrupted them." Judge Abernethy spoke up. "Then they must be silenced permanently. This is not complicated." "I disagree." Elias held up a hand. "My daughter is blood. I cannot simply dispose of her without exhausting other options. And the man represents an opportunity." "What opportunity?" Reverend Killian asked. "To test something I have long believed, that a person can be drawn into our work through their own actions if framed correctly. You want revenge on me. You want to destroy me for what I did to your family. I understand that. But what if I offered you a different kind of revenge, a more meaningful one?" "I do not understand," Caleb said carefully. "I am offering you membership, not as an equal. The Sons of Kronos do not accept men of color as full members, but as an associate. You would attend our gatherings, participate in rituals, and in exchange I would give you what you want most. My family is dead. You cannot give me what I want." "No, but I can give you revenge against the people who killed them. The sugar planter in Louisiana who worked your wife and children to death. His name is Quentin Bell. He is not part of the Sons of Kronos. He has no protection from us. If you join us, prove your loyalty, I will give you resources to destroy him. Money, information, whatever you need to make him suffer as you have suffered." The offer hung in the air, obscene in its calculation. Join the men who destroyed his family to get revenge on another monster. "And if I refuse?" "Then you and Seraphina both die tonight. Your bodies go into the marsh. No one will ever know what happened. The papers Seraphina was copying will be burned, her journals destroyed. Everything continues as it always has." Elias spread his hands. "But if you accept, you live. Seraphina lives. You get your revenge. All it costs is your soul."
Caleb looked at Seraphina. Her face was pale, but she gave him the slightest shake of her head. "Do not do it. Whatever happens, do not become them." But Caleb was thinking about accepting, about getting inside their organization, about gathering more evidence, about buying time. He looked back at Elias and Seraphina. What happens to her? She returns to her room, resumes her medications, forgets what she has seen. The alternative is she dies alongside you. "No!" Seraphina's voice cut across the chamber. "I will not forget again. I will not be silenced. Kill me if you must, Father, but I will not pretend I do not know what you are." Elias's expression hardened. "Then you have made your choice." "Wait!" Caleb spoke quickly. "I accept, but on one condition. Seraphina goes free, not back to her room, free. Let her leave this house, leave Georgia, give her money to start over. If you do that, I will join you." Several Sons of Kronos members shook their heads, but Judge Abernathy spoke. "The boy makes a point. The girl is already broken. Even if she spoke, who would believe her? But a man willing to join us, to be complicit, that is valuable. That proves our power extends even to those who hate us." Elias considered. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, Seraphina will be sent north. I have associates in Philadelphia who will take her in. She will be given a new identity and a stipend to live on, but she can never return to Georgia, never contact anyone from her old life. She will be dead to everyone here. Agreed?" Seraphina stared at Caleb. "No, I will not leave you two." "Agreed," Caleb interrupted. "She goes free, I join you. Then we have a bargain." Elias turned to the others. "Seraphina leaves tomorrow. Caleb's initiation will be in 3 weeks, at the next regular gathering. Until then, he remains at Blackwood Creek under watch. If he tries to escape or contact anyone, the deal is void, and both die. Understood?" Caleb nodded. Seraphina looked like she wanted to argue, but Caleb caught her eye and shook his head slightly. "Trust me." Seraphina left the next morning. A closed carriage took her away at dawn. Caleb watched from his cabin window as it rolled down the long drive and disappeared into the trees. She had not been allowed to say goodbye. He had not been allowed to speak with her after the confrontation in the cellar. But as she had been escorted to her room the previous night, she had looked back at him once, and in her eyes he had seen something that gave him hope. She understood. She knew he had not truly surrendered. She knew this was strategy, not defeat. The question was whether she would actually go to Philadelphia, or whether she had her own plans. The 3 weeks that followed were the longest of Caleb's life. He was kept under constant watch. 2 overseers followed him everywhere. He was not allowed to leave the plantation grounds. He was given menial work to keep him occupied, meaningless tasks that accomplished nothing but filled time. But he was also given access to the main house, to the study where Elias kept his papers, to the cellar where the next gathering would take place. They were watching him, yes, but they were also testing him, seeing if he would try to escape, seeing if he would attempt sabotage. Caleb did neither. He played the role of defeated man who had made a pragmatic choice for survival. He was quiet, obedient, asked no questions, caused no problems. But he was observing everything, learning the routines of the house, noting which slaves could be trusted, which overseers were cruel, which Sons of Kronos members visited regularly. He was building a mental map of how everything worked, looking for weaknesses. And at night, alone in his cabin, he thought about what was coming. His initiation would require participation in their rituals. They would test him. They would want to make him complicit in something horrible, so he could never expose them without destroying himself. He thought about how far he was willing to go, what lines he would not cross, even for revenge, whether there was any act so terrible that justice did not justify it. He did not have good answers to those questions. On June 24th, the night before his initiation, Elias came to his cabin. It was late, after midnight. Caleb woke to knocking and opened the door to find his owner standing there alone. "May I come in?" Caleb stepped aside. Elias entered and looked around the sparse room. Finally, he spoke. "Tomorrow you will become one of us, not fully, never fully, but enough. I want you to understand what that means." "I understand what I agreed to." "Do you? Do you truly?" Elias sat on the single chair, uninvited. "The Sons of Kronos have existed for 45 years. In that time,
We have never lost a member to exposure, never had someone break our code of silence. Do you know why? Because everyone is equally guilty, partly, but also because we take care of each other. A man joins the Sons, and suddenly doors open, business opportunities appear, legal problems disappear, enemies find themselves in difficulty. We are not just a society, Caleb. We are a network of power that extends across the entire South. Once you are part of that network, even as an associate, you will have access to resources you cannot imagine. And in exchange, I help you murder people. Elias did not flinch. In exchange, you help us maintain the natural order, the strong over the weak, the powerful over the powerless. That is how the world has always worked. We simply acknowledge it and use it to our advantage. You killed my family to demonstrate your commitment to that order. I did, and I would do it again, because sentiment is weakness, love is weakness. The moment you allow yourself to care more about individuals than about power, you have already lost. Elias leaned forward. But here is what I want you to understand. Your family is dead. Nothing you do will change that. But you can ensure their deaths meant something. You can use the power the Sons of Kronos offers to prevent other families from suffering the same fate. You can work from inside our organization to make changes, to push for less brutal treatment of slaves, to advocate for better conditions. You will have a voice at our table that is worth something.
It was almost convincing. Almost. The idea that Caleb could become some kind of reformer from within, using his position to help others. But he knew it was a trap, a rationalization. The moment he participated in their rituals, he would be compromised. The moment he accepted their power, he would be corrupted by it. "Why are you telling me this?" Caleb asked. "Because I want you to succeed. Because having you as an ally is more valuable than having you as an enemy. Because I killed your family, but I do not want to kill you." Elias stood. "Tomorrow night, you will be asked to do something difficult, something that will test whether you truly commit to this path. I am telling you now, whatever you are asked to do it. Do not hesitate. Do not show weakness, because if you fail the test, both you and Seraphina die. Yes, I know she is not really in Philadelphia. I know she is hiding somewhere, planning her own revenge. But I have people watching for her. The moment she surfaces, if you have not proven yourself, she will be found and killed. Do you understand?" Ice flooded through Caleb. Seraphina was alive, but she was in danger, and his actions tomorrow would determine whether she lived or died. "I understand," he said quietly. Elias nodded and left without another word. Caleb sat alone in the dark cabin, thinking about the impossible position he was in. He had to participate in something monstrous tomorrow, had to prove himself to monsters, had to become complicit in evil, or he had to find another way, a third option that neither Elias nor the Sons of Kronos anticipated. He pulled out the paper with his family's names, looked at them in the moonlight coming through the window. "Forgive me," he whispered, "for what I'm about to do, for what I have to become. I promise you it will not be for nothing." The gathering began at midnight on June 25th. Caleb was brought to the North Wing cellar by 2 Sons of Kronos members who stripped him to the waist and tied his hands behind his back. They led him down the stairs into the candlelit chamber where all 13 members waited in their robes. Elias stood at the altar's head. "Brothers of Kronos, tonight we conduct an initiation unlike any in our history. We bring into our circle a man who has every reason to hate us, a man who has lost everything because of what we represent. We do this to prove that our power extends even to our enemies, that anyone can be brought into the fold if the price is right." He gestured, and 2 more Sons of Kronos members brought forward a figure, bound and gagged, struggling weakly. They placed the person on the altar and stepped back. It was a young woman enslaved,
perhaps 18 or 19 years old, terrified. "This is your test, Caleb," Elias said. "To join us, you must participate in our ritual. You must take the knife and make the first cut. You must prove that your desire for revenge against Bel is stronger than your moral objections to our methods. If you refuse, you die here tonight. If you accept, you become one of us, and we help you destroy the man who killed your family." The other Sons of Kronos members began chanting low, rhythmic sounds in a language Caleb did not recognize. The candles flickered, shadows danced on the walls. Elias held out a knife, a long blade, wickedly sharp, its handle wrapped in scarred leather. "Take it. Make the choice." Caleb looked at the woman on the altar. She was crying, trying to scream through the gag. Her eyes found his, and in them he saw every enslaved person who had ever suffered at the hands of people like the Sons of Kronos. He saw Lena, Isaac, Maya. He saw himself. He looked at the knife, at Elias, at the 13 men watching to see what he would do. This was the moment, the point where he would either become a monster or die resisting. But there was a third option he had been planning for 3 weeks, one that required perfect timing and absolute commitment. He pulled out the paper with his family's names, looked at them in the moonlight coming through the window. "Forgive me," he whispered, "for what I'm about to do, for what I have to become. I promise you it will not be for nothing."
The gathering began at midnight on June 25th. Caleb was brought to the North Wing cellar by 2 Sons of Kronos members who stripped him to the waist and tied his hands behind his back. They led him down the stairs into the candlelit chamber where all 13 members waited in their robes. Elias stood at the altar's head. "Brothers of Kronos, tonight we conduct an initiation unlike any in our history. We bring into our circle a man who has every reason to hate us, a man who has lost everything because of what we represent. We do this to prove that our power extends even to our enemies, that anyone can be brought into the fold if the price is right." He gestured, and 2 more Sons of Kronos members brought forward a figure, bound and gagged, struggling weakly. They placed the person on the altar and stepped back. It was a young woman, enslaved, perhaps 18 or 19 years old, terrified. "This is your test, Caleb," Elias said. "To join us, you must participate in our ritual. You must take the knife and make the first cut. You must prove that your desire for revenge against Bel is stronger than your moral objections to our methods. If you refuse, you die here tonight. If you accept, you become one of us, and we help you destroy the man who killed your family." The other Sons of Kronos members began chanting low, rhythmic sounds in a language Caleb did not recognize. The candles flickered, shadows danced on the walls. Elias held out a knife, a long blade, wickedly sharp, its handle wrapped in scarred leather. "Take it. Make the choice." Caleb looked at the woman on the altar. She was crying, trying to scream through the gag. Her eyes found his, and in them he saw every enslaved person who had ever suffered at the hands of people like the Sons of Kronos. He saw Lena, Isaac, Maya. He saw himself. He looked at the knife, at Elias, at the 13 men watching to see what he would do. This was the moment, the point where he would either become a monster or die resisting. But there was a third option, one he had been planning for 3 weeks, one that required perfect timing and absolute commitment. He took the knife.
The Sons of Kronos members nodded approvingly. Elias smiled. The chanting increased in intensity. Caleb stepped toward the altar. The woman's eyes went wide with terror. He raised the knife, and then he moved, not toward the woman,
toward the nearest Sons of Kronos member. The knife flashed in the candlelight and buried itself in the man's throat before anyone could react. Blood sprayed. The man collapsed. Caleb grabbed the fallen member's robe, pulling it off in one motion. He threw it over the nearest candles, plunging half the room into darkness. Chaos erupted. He moved through the confusion like violence incarnate. Years of rage focused into action. He grabbed another man, using him as a shield as someone swung at him, threw the body into two more members, tangling them, kicked out at a knee, heard bone crack, grabbed a candle holder and smashed it into a face. The Sons of Kronos were powerful men, but they were not fighters. They were soft, privileged, used to others doing violence for them. Caleb was none of those things. He fought toward the altar where the woman lay, grabbed her, cut her bonds with the knife he had somehow kept hold of. "Run!" he shouted up the stairs. "Run!" She scrambled off the altar and fled. Caleb turned back to face the remaining Sons of Kronos members, 5 of them still standing, blocking the stairs. "You have made a terrible mistake," Elias said, his voice steady despite the carnage. "You have killed yourself and Seraphina both." "Maybe," Caleb said, "but I will take as many of you with me as I can." What he did not know was that above them in the main house, Seraphina had returned. She had never gone to Philadelphia. She had been hiding in the slave quarters, waiting, planning, gathering allies among the enslaved people of Blackwood Creek. And when she heard the commotion from the cellar, when she saw the young woman burst from the kitchen screaming, she knew it was time. The reckoning. Seraphina had spent 3 weeks recruiting. She had moved from plantation to plantation under cover of darkness, speaking to enslaved people she had known her whole life, people who had watched her grow up, who had suffered under her father's ownership. She told them about the Sons of Kronos, about the cellar, about the rituals, and she told them that tonight was the night they could end it. 28 people came, men and women who had nothing left to lose, who had lost children to the Sons' rituals, who had watched friends disappear into the marshes, who had endured decades of brutality from men who believed themselves untouchable. They came armed with tools from the fields, axes, scythes, hammers. They came with rage that had been building for generations. When the young woman burst from the cellar, Seraphina led them down. The Sons of Kronos members, still trying to subdue Caleb, did not hear them coming until it was too late. The enslaved people flooded into the cellar like a tide. There was no mercy in what followed, no hesitation. These were people who had been told their entire lives they were property, that their suffering did not matter, that their lives had no value. Now they were proving how wrong those beliefs were. The Sons of Kronos tried to fight. Judge Abernathy pulled a pistol, but was struck down before he could fire. Reverend Killian begged for mercy and received none. Marcus Fanning tried to flee up the stairs and was dragged back down. Elias Thorne, seeing everything collapse around him, tried one last desperate play. He grabbed Seraphina, pulling her to him with a knife at her throat. "Stop! Stop, or I kill her!" The room went still. Seraphina looked at her father with no fear in her eyes. "Do it! Kill me! It changes nothing. You have already lost." "I can still escape! I can still—" "You can still nothing." Seraphina's voice was cold. "You spent 16 years trying to break me, trying to make me forget, trying to convince me I was mad, but you failed. I remembered everything, and I am going to watch you die." She drove her elbow back into his ribs with sudden vicious force. His grip loosened. She spun away, and before Elias could recover, Caleb was there. They faced each other, the enslaved man and the plantation owner. All the power Elias had held, all the privilege and cruelty, all the years of believing himself untouchable, none of it mattered now. "You took everything from me," Caleb said quietly. "My wife,
my children, my life. You did it for no reason except that you could, to prove something to men who valued cruelty over humanity. Please, Elias said, just that one word, pathetic and desperate. Did my wife say please? Did my son? Did any of the people you killed in this cellar? Caleb shook his head. No mercy, not for you, not ever. What happened next was brutal and final. The enslaved people made sure none of the sons of Kronos survived. 13 men who had believed themselves above consequence learned in their final moments that power was an illusion, that cruelty always came home eventually. When it was over, Seraphina stood in the center of the cellar, surrounded by bodies. She was shaking, not from fear, but from release. 16 years of rage finally given outlet. Caleb came to her. Are you hurt? No. Are you? Minor cuts, nothing serious. He looked around at the carnage. What do we do now? Now? Seraphina's smile was grim. Now we burn it all. The cellar, the ledger, the evidence. We destroy every trace of what happened here. But that evidence could prove what they did, could bring justice. Justice? Seraphina laughed bitterly. Caleb, look around. This is justice, the only kind we were ever going to get. If we tried to take that ledger to authorities, what happens? We are hunted down and killed. The surviving Sons of Kronos members in other counties come for us. This only ends if everyone believes the Blackwood Creek chapter died in an accident. If there is no evidence, no witnesses, no story to tell. She was right, and Caleb knew it. Then we burn it.
They spent the next 2 hours preparing. The enslaved people who had helped them left before dawn, disappearing back to their various plantations. They would say nothing, they had seen nothing, they knew nothing. That was how survival worked. Seraphina and Caleb poured oil through the cellar, stacked wood and kindling, placed the bodies in positions that might look like an accident if anyone investigated. Then they took the ledger and all the journals and placed them in the center of the altar. "Wait," Caleb said. He opened the ledger one last time and found the entries about his family. He carefully tore out those pages and folded them, placing them inside his shirt. For them, so they are not forgotten. Seraphina nodded. Then she took a candle and held it to the oil-soaked wood. The fire caught immediately. Within minutes the cellar was ablaze. They fled up the stairs and out of the house, stood in the yard watching as flames engulfed Blackwood Creek Plantation. People would come. Other plantations would see the smoke. There would be questions, but Seraphina and Caleb had their story prepared. A terrible accident, a candle knocked over in the cellar, the master and his guests trapped below. So tragic, so terrible, no one would ever know the truth. As the sun rose over the burning ruins, Seraphina turned to Caleb. "What will you do now?" "Go north. Use the chaos of this fire to disappear. Maybe find others who want to fight, to create a network that can help people escape." He pulled out the paper with his family's names. "I cannot bring them back, but I can make sure others do not suffer the same fate. And I will go north as well. Use the money I have been stealing from my father's accounts for years. Start over." She paused. "But I will not forget. I will document everything that happened here. I will write it all down so that someday, somehow, someone knows the truth. They sealed the records. They will seal your testimony too if you try to make it public. Then I will hide it. I will code it. I will leave it somewhere to be found decades from now, when we are all dead and it cannot hurt us anymore." She looked at the burning house. "The truth has a way of surfacing eventually, even when people try to bury it." They stayed until the fire burned itself out, until Blackwood Creek Plantation was nothing but ash and blackened timbers, until there was nothing left to show that 13 men had gathered there to commit atrocities. Then they walked away in opposite directions. Seraphina north toward Charleston and eventually Philadelphia. Caleb west toward the frontier, where enslaved people could disappear into communities that asked no questions.
They never saw each other again. The official story was exactly as they had planned, a tragic accident. Elias Thorne and 12 prominent gentlemen meeting at Blackwood Creek to discuss business when a fire broke out. All 13 perished in the cellar, overcome by smoke before they could escape. A terrible loss for Oak Haven County. Funerals with full honors, eulogies praising their contributions to society. Seraphina Thorne was reported to have died in the fire as well, her father's mad daughter, trapped in her room, unable to escape, a particularly sad footnote to an already tragic event. No one questioned it. No one looked too closely. The enslaved people who had participated said nothing. They had no reason to speak and every reason to remain silent. Most were sold within months to different plantations as Blackwood Creek was liquidated. They scattered across Georgia and beyond, carrying their secret with them to their graves.
Years passed. The ruins of Blackwood Creek were eventually demolished, the land sold, new buildings constructed. Life moved on, as it always does, covering over the past with the present. But whispers persisted. Stories told in slave quarters late at night about the plantation where the masters burned, about the night justice came to men who thought themselves untouchable, about the woman and the man who made it happen. The stories changed with each telling, becoming legend, becoming myth, but the core remained, that cruelty had consequences, that power was not absolute, that sometimes the powerless found their power. In 1868, during the Reconstruction era, Union surveyors occupied the area where Blackwood Creek had stood. They found evidence of old tunnels beneath the property, found bones in the nearby marsh, found markings on trees that suggested ritual sites. But the era moved on, and no one had time to investigate further. In 1985, during demolition work for a new subdivision, a journal was found sealed in a wall of a collapsed outbuilding. It detailed everything: names, dates, rituals, victims. But as Seraphina had predicted, it was coded. And before anyone could fully decode it, the journal vanished from county records. Some say it was destroyed. Others say it was taken by descendants of the sons of Kronos families, protecting their ancestors' secrets. A few believe it still exists somewhere, waiting to be rediscovered when the time is right. What is known is this: 5 prominent men died in a fire in 1852. Seraphina Thorne disappeared shortly afterward, though no body was ever confirmed found. An enslaved man named Caleb Finch was reported sold to a plantation in Alabama, but no record of the transaction exists. And for years afterward, stories circulated among enslaved communities about a network helping people escape, led by a man who had faced the monster and won. Whether those stories were true or just wishful thinking, no one can say for certain. But sometimes truth lives not in official records, but in the stories people tell, in the memories they keep, in the justice they remember, even when history tries to forget. This mystery shows us that power built on cruelty is never as solid as it seems, that secrets kept in darkness eventually find light, that the people deemed powerless often hold the most dangerous power of all: the power of witness, the power of memory, the power of refusing to forget.